Howdy, everybody out there in YouTube land. So today, our chapter is all about mentalism. So I figured to get us started, I would read your minds. Yeah, read your minds. Here we go. First and foremost, we have to have a card selected that I don't see. Okay. Then, because there's there's about 4 of us watching this right now, we're gonna create 3 piles, and then I'll be number 4, right? And so, since you're not here, I will have to read my own mind. Let's see here. We're going to go with, yeah, I think we got it. There's 4 of us. Wish, if there was like 1,000 people watching this right now, this would be a different trick. I'm just telling you. Right? Because, we're guessing a card, so is always the middle one. And you know what? You guys that are watching, you are the idol of my heart, right? So Heart and S. That makes your card the 8 of clubs. Oh wait, that might be right, but I didn't. See, I gotta do the magic move, right? Remember, I said that we're gonna read your minds. So that's gonna be MINDS. So here's the 8. And we spelled out the 4 of hearts, but that's not this. This is actually the 9 of hearts. So maybe, just maybe, we'll get 9 people watching this. And that would be me reading the future. Mentalism. Ooh, we'll see how many views I get. Okay. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Okay. I love that trick. I can present that about 50 different ways on a bad day. I mean, that trick can be customized any way that you want, and it's absolutely stellar. So let's go ahead and jump into our chapter of today. And if you're watching this tomorrow, then it's the chapter of yesterday. Mentalism. Oop, that's too far. There we go. And just getting a quick look ahead here. We call that a peek in the business. Let's see here. So good bit of pages here. So let's jump into it. Ready to go. I love tennis and have spent a ridiculous fortune on lessons, but to the glee of my opponents, I still stink at it. I blame this distressing lack of skill on the fact that I took up the game in my 40s. My bad habits were unbreakable, so I never developed the strokes my son mastered by the time he was 10. A similar phenomenon exists when a performer branches from magic into mentalism. It seems the more years a person steeps himself exclusively in magic, the more difficult it becomes to understand the dynamics of successful and entertaining mentalism. Which when I did that card trick, I probably was using a lot of magic principles and not so much the elevated sense of reading, of mentalism. Not to say that it's beyond magic, but they're separate and different. Mentalism are well aware that within the general magic community, many believe the phrase entertaining mentalism is an oxymoron. And some of my PEA buddies would be pleased if I allowed magicians to continue believing that. Magicians who deride mentalism tend to know the art from seeing it performed in magic settings. And I am the first to agree that in those settings it usually is boring and difficult to watch. That's not the mentalism I care about and love. If you haven't seen the modern masters of the field performing for lay audiences, Gil Eagles, Mark Salem, Leora Minor, Ross Johnson, the Eversons, Gary McCumbridge, Chris Carter, John Stetson, Guy Bavley, Ian Goldenberg, Sidney Friedman, Greg Gorgas, Banachek, Alan New, to name just a few of many. So, interestingly enough, some of these names I've seen in this book, but I haven't steeped myself in a lot of mentalism. Banachek is one that has come across my studies. So, you have no idea how powerful mentalism can affect and entertain an audience. That said, great magic can be equally compelling and powerful! Exclamation point. If you are a successful magician, don't shoehorn mind reading into your show if it doesn't feel natural to you. And from my experience, it won't feel natural to most magicians. I agree in the sense that most of the stuff I do is mentalism doesn't play a role in that. Even when I present this trick normally, the card trick, it's not that. So take that as you will. Blame Blaine. When the Psychic Entertainers Association first convened in New Jersey in 1978, magicians and mentalists were oil and water. They didn't mix. Literally, in fact, there was noticeable animosity between the two groups. Magicians sneered that mentalism was boring, and mentalists thought the same about four ace tricks and almost anything else to do with cards. Magicians studied Bobo, Vernon, Hegard, and so on, or Gene Haggard, yeah, and so on. They sessioned with cards, and they had thousands of other books and magazines. Our world, for reference, was much smaller. Mentalists studied Corinda, Animan, which, just saying, I got his book in my pocket, Hoy, and a handful of others. We anxiously awaited our monthly issue of Bascom John's Magic. We didn't care much for card or coin tricks. Well, yeah, because if you can read people's minds, then why would it matter what card? Because then you're limited to 52 possibilities. But if you can read somebody's mind, endless possibilities. So if you can pull that off, it's different. Again, it just seems different. Both are impressive, but the way you spin it, it's the performer that really elevates it to the next level, not the material. There are strong tricks and there are weak tricks, but the performer can make anything work if he can perform well enough. Then, two things changed the landscape forever: David Blaine and technology. In 1997, Blaine's first TV special scored huge ratings. In that show, he did straight magic. But in his second special 2 years later, he performed some intensely strong mentalism, and magicians took notice. Who can blame them? And around the same time, Darren Brown became a TV star in the UK with his mind control shows. Then advances in technology, first with desktop publishing and then with miniaturized electronics, allowed magicians to perform miracles that Animan, Dunninger, and Kuranda could only dream of. The problem is, those dreams became nightmares as effects were bought on Tuesday and appeared in shows on Thursday or Tuesday night. Too many magicians thought mentalism, which frequently requires little or no manual dexterity, was easy. They didn't grasp that in many ways mentalism requires more thought and preparation than magic tricks. I, personally, have been researching and studying propless magic and mentalism, but not as a performer, but as a way of getting better. So even for myself, who's mid-tier, like I don't go into thinking that mentalism is like where I should be. Propless magic is harder, not easier, because then you don't have anything to distract. You don't have anything on display. You have to make the magic happen without that. And so I want some really solid mentalism pieces that require no props so that I can perform magic on the fly. There are certain things that you got to have. You can have prepared stuff, you can have setup stuff, you can have random things that are in the environment, like paper clips and things like that, that you can do magic with. But those are still the same tricks that you might do with a prepared object. You're just preparing and practicing with those objects so that you can do it on the fly without having, you could borrow a pen and you wouldn't need to bring one because you're going to be able to find those things in the wild. And then you take it a step further and you don't have anything, then now it's all in their minds, which means you have to do the misdirection. You have to do everything behind their eyes. And that's the hardest place to do stuff. Don't dilute. In an email sent in May 2017, prodigiously inventive Jay Sankey starts a promo video for Mind Bending DVD by saying, "When magic students ask me for advice, I always tell them, mix in a little mentalism with your magic." Ugh. Jay means well, and his suggestion fits right in with what's been happening in the magic world. But it's misguided. Mentalism is a demonstration of a very special skill. It is not magic as perceived by most people. Know this for sure. Mentalism within a magic show is diluted mentalism. Put another way, mentalism within a magic show is seen as one more magic trick. If you think otherwise, you're fooling yourself. Conversely, sometimes a bit of magic within a mentalism show can add fun, but the mentalist ought to let the audience know that now he's doing something apart from the rest of his show. Here's something I learned years ago while I was researching the art of mystery, or something similar. A few top mentalists, including Duniger and Kruskin, did a little magic within their longer shows. But for most mentalists, the smarter path is to leave the magic at home. Resist the urge to show your other talents. Less is more. Like I said, I don't do a whole lot of mentalism. I sidebar, because this is a good conversation here. So I ordered a shirt from Magic Orthodoxy. It's a show shirt, and he goes through Teespring, and it's been 2 months now, and I just got another correspondence from them. They've been very forthcoming. They explain that there's production issues. I get it, and I'm fine, and I'm gonna wait for the shirt because I really want it. But I haven't got it, so now I'm like, what do I do? So I bought the book, the 202 Ways of Forcing, and I got all the props ready, so I have a show, and that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to mix in magic. I wanted, well, there is magic elements in there, but I wanted everything to be themed to the shirt because that's the show shirt. So I wanted a show that was it's a pocket show for sure, but I didn't want it to necessarily be my EDC pocket show. I wanted this to be a specific show that goes in a coat that I can put on. I put the shirt on, put the coat on, and I've got everything I need. So that to me is separate. It's completely different. It's just something that everything's in the pockets. I know where everything is. I can perform everything for that show, and that's all I carry. Because when I go to do that show, that's the show, and it's a lot of mentalism. Because that's Magic Orthodoxy does a lot of David there, does a lot of mentalism, does magic, but does mentalism. So I haven't got the shirt yet. I can still perform most of the stuff, but that kicker ending is really where I want to be. So I can't finish it. I can't rehearse it until I have the shirt. A2, Tamarez, the Maestro. To illustrate the limited understanding of mentalism strategies among magicians, here's a quote from Darwin Ortiz's incredibly comprehensive and overwhelmingly right on target book, Strong Magic, Creative Showmanship for the Close-Up Magician. It is on my list. It's on my list. There is a list of books that was released that was, what is it called? I think it was the Magic Circle did a newspaper article on it, but it's like the epitome, the epitaph. It's everybody has it in terms of like readers will have it and things like that. It's a 3x3 shelf. Like I got a bookshelf behind me that has magic props and stuff on it and books. And the question is, if you could only have 10 books, what 10 books would those be? And that could be if you're an avid reader of fantasy, if you're a reference book guy with knowledge and things like that, or if you're a magician, what books would you have on your shelf? And so I'm just kind of collecting books, but at the end of the day, what books are you going to have on that shelf to carry you over? Because if you can never leave your house or order anything else again, what do you need on your shelf? And Darwin Ortiz is on that list. So there's a lot of books that are on the list that are not available anymore, or at least they're a lot cheaper. They're a lot more expensive, than they were originally because they're out of print. So you have to find them. Like, I want Tricks of My Trade by Doug Kahn on my shelf. I just love it. I have the PDF, but I want the actual book. And it's a process to find. Maybe I'll get it someday and I'll be able to display it because I consider Doug Kahn one of my internet mentors. I follow his stuff. I love it. I'm not as engaged with him as I would like to be right now. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's climbing that ladder, and I love it. So I'm watching from the shadows. But I get busy, and I can't connect live with him, so I'll just like post stuff and do different things. But I still give credit where credit's due, and he's my professor. So, to illustrate the limited understanding of mentalism, we already read all that. A very subtle use of the accidental convincer. This is from the book, an excerpt. The accidental convincer is provided by Juan Tamarez in a book test taught in his The 5 Points of Magic, which is probably another one that I should have on the shelf. He wishes to force the seventh word on page 106. Having forced the page, he tells the spectator to add the digits of the page number to arrive at one word on the page. Since 1, 0, and 6 add up to 8, he tells her she should look at the eighth word. Naturally, someone in the audience is bound to point out that 1, 0, and 6 add up to 7, not 8. The performer responds by saying, "Of course, you are right. Excuse me!" Exclamation point. It does not matter. The seventh word. Though a cleverly staged accident, the performer has convinced the audience that he could just as easily define the eighth word or, by implication, any other word in the book. Here we have two major figures, Ortiz and Tamarez, each a highly respected performer and philosopher in the magic world, writing about mentalism and veering wildly off course. This is mentalism as presented at magic conventions. None of the mentalists cited above would ever perform this routine, at least not as written. What's wrong? Mentalism, at its most effective, should be presented as if the performer truly could do what he claims, and I will tell you, not everything working mentalism do is a trick in the magician's sense of the word. So in demonstrating what we would call a book test, a real mind reader would ask you to open a page to any book to any page, focus on one of the words you see there, close the book, and he would then reveal the word. The further one deviates from that ideal, the less convincing it becomes. So the further away you get from that idea of perfectionism, really, because what magicians are trying to do is they're trying to convince you that the number doesn't matter. It can be any number. I can tell you the word. What the mentalist is trying to tell you is it doesn't matter. I can just define the word. So they're not building in accidents to their show because they're just rapid fire doing that on the fly. Let's see. In mentalism, convincing correlates strongly with entertaining. If my left-handed snap was weak to you, touch up. If the audience just assumes it's all a magic trick, I deal with the subject of disclaimers later. The entertainment value plummets. That, in large part, is why mentalism causes eyes to glaze over when performed at magic get-togethers. Magicians refuse or are genetically unable to suspend their belief. Plus, magicians cherish clever moves and gimmicks, and mentalism usually has neither. The Tamarez route, in just those two brief paragraphs, fails for several specific reasons. No real mind reader would ask that digits be added together. If you don't immediately accept this concept, skip this chapter. Okay, here we go. It was nice reading with you today. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel because, like I said, I haven't really forayed into mentalism. I get what he's saying. I understand it from the magician's aspect that you're creating an accident for justification purposes. It's entertaining, but also I understand what he's coming from a mentalism side, that a mentalism wouldn't need to have an accident because they can do it in the overhead sense of performing. A mentalism, by implied definition, is a person with superior mental abilities. I'll let him use the words because his are better. Would he have trouble adding 1, 0, and 6? And since the routine as presented suggests that he stumbled over the simple addition, he looks momentarily foolish. Who would want that? Although it may work for Tamarez, thanks to his hyperkinetic stage persona, naturally, someone in the audience is bound to point out that 1, 0, and 6 add up to 7, not 8. That assumes that the audience is paying close attention. Some brave soul will risk embarrassing the star of the show by pointing out how foolish, see second bullet above, he is, and said brave soul is certain he himself won't be embarrassed. All in all, it's too big an assumption. Moving on. The page has been forced. The routine has already moved away from the ideal book test. Now, another level of complexity is tacked on to arrive at the word. The spectator is asked to count to the eighth or seventh word. What's happening while that counting is going on? Usually nothing, because the performer can't risk distracting the spectator and causing a miscount. Regardless of the situation, in some cases the spectator will miscount and end up on the wrong word. A working mentalist or anyone else hoping to present entertaining mentalism cannot take that chance. One or two of the above problems may be acceptable, but in this case we just have too many. All magic gains an entertainment value when the plot is direct and unencumbered with detours, and this dictum is particularly true in mentalism. This Tamara's routine will mystify many viewers, but it also imparts a psychological residue that something's amiss here. So it's coming across as a magician doing magic. It's not coming across like a trick. It's not coming across as a genuine psychic experience, which I think those are the distinctions that are trying to be made here between the two different things. One is an act, and one is for real. But it's not saying that it's real for real, but just saying that that's the presentation that's being given. Mistakes don't happen for somebody who can actually do it. Strong, entertaining mentalism is clean. Mentalism, think of something, I'll tell you what it is. Ironically, directly after the two paragraphs on the Tamara's routine, Ortiz writes about another pre-planned accidental convincer used by the late German mentalist Punks. Until his health failed, Punks was a member of the PEA, and he performed for us on a couple of occasions. He was a true mentalist. The convincer he used, as cited by Ortiz, was of a different magnitude. Punks would sometimes unfold a billet and turn it 180 degrees before reading it. In fact, the billet was blank, and Punks was actually reciting from memory the spectator's writing, which he previously glimpsed. The implication being that the writing was upside down when he first unfolded the paper. That move, the turn of the paper, aligns perfectly with the actions we might see. If the routine was performed by a person, psychic or otherwise, who simply happens to open the paper and saw that the writing was upside down. Yeah. Let's read that again just to put that into the brain. That move, the unfolding the billet and turning it up, the turning of the paper aligns perfectly with the actions we might see if the routine was performed by a person, psychic or otherwise, who simply happened to open the paper and saw that the writing was glimpsed upside down. Now, if presented the right way, I could also see how that would be nice to reveal that it's actually blank. I've seen that performed that way. Now, I'm not a mentalist, so I can't really say for sure if mentalists would like that. But you could spin it by saying, this is the paper that I retrieved from the past before you wrote on it. You could potentially then have the writing reappear. That could be fun. But then again, that's a magician's take on it, because why would you do that? What not to say. Yes, I have a whole section devoted to phrases magical performers should steer clear of. But mentalists have their own linguistic potholes to avoid. Here are the most common. We didn't set anything up, did we? Yeah, that's probably a big one. Don't allude to something like, oh, this is a perfectly normal deck. Is it? should I be worried? Like, far too many mentalists use variations of that line. In most cases, you accomplish nothing by making those statements. In fact, you probably do more harm than good. First, you are implanting the idea of what might have happened. Maybe some of the people he uses were told what to say or do. Second, some in your audience will think when the person agrees with you, well, yeah, that's exactly what she would say if they were secret accomplices. Yet, as your show progresses, your audience should be on your side. They ought to have a sense of trust that people from the audience are random selections. But suddenly you say, and we haven't set anything up beforehand, have we? And up go the skeptic's antennae. If you feel you must say something to establish that this is a clean spectator, at least stay away from the cliches that other performers use. Similarly, we haven't met before, correct? Which can lead to awkward moments if you actually had briefly met the person, innocently, somewhere prior to the show. Perhaps say, you had no idea you would be participating up here tonight, correct? But now that you're here, Or, I chatted with several people before the show, but I'd rather use other folks. The gentleman there in the red shirt. We haven't met, have we? That accomplishes the same thing as the cliches without making it a big deal. You can say, we haven't met before, have we? If someone looks familiar and you need to know that before asking that person to participate. You ask those cliche questions because you've heard them from others. A pro mentalist myself, I can assure you that leading mentalists rarely or never ask those questions. They just choose folks from the audience and get on with it. You should do the same. Is there an R in the word? Never ask if there is a particular letter in the thought of word. Anyone can do that! Exclamation point. Be authoritative. There's a B in the word, isn't there? If you're wrong, you're wrong. So what? Mentalists should never be perfect. Now, I said earlier about perfectionism. I guess maybe as we're going through this, we learned that there is perfectionism in the act, but not perfectionism in the routine, if that makes sense. You do want there to be some snag, some challenge. That's what people are interested in. Trick, as in the last time I did this trick, a woman said, if you hold yourself out as a mentalist or any of its variations, be that. Magicians do tricks, mentalists do something different. You gain nothing by saying trick, effect, magic, magician, or anything similar. Those words detract from your character. Cards. You are using a pack of ESP symbols or cards that have the names of animals, cities, movie stars, songs, etc. You should never say cards. The word cards is for card tricks. Instead say, choose a food, concentrate on the song, mix up all the symbols. So whatever it is that's on the cards, that's what you refer to them as, because they're a grouping, they're a category, they're something specific that you're pulling from. They're not the cards themselves, which in a pack of cards, that you pick a card. Because that's what the cards are. It's not like you've got I've got a group of fours here, which you can have for, H4 trick or something like that, but that's not typically how you refer to those. As you may know, mentalists have strong opinions about whether or not to use playing cards at all. I fall squarely in the middle. Card routines can be effective, but often you'd be better served by using something other than standard cards. After all, which has more resonance for any normal human? The Six of Clubs, or a food, a person, or a vacation spot? It makes sense because now you're really tying in things that you would see in the wild, which people will start to think about those things because they see them more regularly. They might have a coffee pot at home and they're thinking, oh, I have a blue one. There's your moment. Boom, you've just now created something in their mind that is far better than what you could have created on the stage because they can feel it in their hands because they've done it thousands of times. Concentrate! Exclamation point. Often we see the mentalist bark out that word, yet the volunteer on stage has nothing specific to concentrate upon. She's holding a hidden card, a sealed envelope, a coin randomly chosen from many, but as of yet unseen. What in the world is she supposed to concentrate upon? That request only makes sense if the person already has a specific thought in mind. Makes sense. Don't overuse it. Only use it in that example that I gave. If they're thinking about the coffee pot, they already selected something. And you're asking them to dig deeper into their brain and say, did you get a cup of coffee at home this morning? You did. I want you to think about your coffee pot. I want you to think about the routine that you go through when you push the button to start it. Think about the color. Think about the shape. Think about the water level as it's percolating. And then I want you to think about the cup in your hand as you pour the water. You go right into that, and they can imagine all those things happening because they just did it. Concentrate on the sensation. Hold out your tongue. Well, that just seems weird. Let's see what he says. Said during a routine where envelopes are used. Oh, yeah. It's meant to get a laugh as it becomes clear that the performer is about to use that tongue to seal the envelope. Yes, it gets a laugh, but as with a brawl trick, this gag needs to be permanently retired. It's gross on several levels, plus, fans of a certain TV series about nothing will recall how Georgie's fiance died from licking envelopes, and you don't need that memory popping up in your show. Make your mind blank. Have you ever done that? No, you haven't, because unless you're a severely serious meditator or asleep, you can't. And even if could achieve instant nirvana now and then, you couldn't do it on command with strangers watching you. So either don't say it or ask for something more achievable like relax, breathe deeply. Explaining away the mystery. Classic mentalists of the past, Duniger, Corinne, Fugel, Kruskin, etc., made little or no attempt to give rational explanations for their miracles. They just read your mind, period. That started changing in the 1980s, in large part when my friend Mark Salem, began saying he used body language cues to help him decipher what was going on inside his participant's mind. Mark had in fact been a student of a pioneer in the field, Ray Birdwhistell, an anthropologist who coined the term kinetics, or kinesics, meaning facial expressions, gestures, postures, and gait, and visible arm and body movements. And Salem convincingly built parts of his presentation around that concept. Mark Salem used his deep knowledge of the field to reasonably and entertainingly figure out what people on stage were thinking. Mark also appears to have originated the lie to me technique. Now it seems every mentalist feels the need to explain how they accomplish certain feats. Body language has become the ambitious card of mentalism. Everyone does it. Those mentalists may be working against themselves. The magic dissipates if we know how you did it. David Corsaro, a respected part-time performer, told me of the time he did a short mentalism set for 50 of his office colleagues. David is a marketing exec and a busy magician, but mentalism was something newish for him. In talking with them afterward, he realized that they loved the standard mentalism routines, but he got no particular feedback on which hand is the coin in routine. So he pressed for further insight into their thinking, and what he heard was, well, you told us how you did it. Yes, he had explained to them he was closely watching their body language. Did you see how his shoulder dipped right there? Did you notice the blink at that moment? And that was all they needed. They now knew how it was done. I'm not saying you shouldn't use body language or similar explanations in your mentalism. Just don't go overboard with it, and be aware that many of their mentalism buddies use the same approach. Bottom line, if you give too much of an explanation, it's no longer amazing. It's just science. So the idea, one of the things that I potentially do like this is say, okay, we're going to try to read your mind and maybe some other things to see if we can get a good read on you. Okay, I want you to think of some colors. Think about blue, red, and green. Blue, red, green. Now, I'm not telling you what I'm doing. I'm just watching your body, and then I'm like, okay, great. I think we can get this. Perfect. Okay, so here's what we're going to need to do. We're going to have you select a card here. Just tell me when to stop. Perfect. There's your card. Okay, now that's the Jack of Spades. Now, obviously, I wouldn't know this in the trick, but I could even give them the card. Hey, I want you to keep that card to yourself. Don't let me see it. Perfect. And then that's just forcing a card. And so now I've given you the premise that I knew what color you were thinking about, even though I didn't say what color you were thinking about. I just kind of gave you the impression that I did. And then I went into the card, but I already got my peek on the card. I already knew what it was prior to giving it to you, type of situation, which would look something like this. So if I were to have you select a card, just tell me when to stop. Perfect. You like that card? You want that one? Okay, here you go. Go ahead and hold on to that. Don't let me see it. Show it to your friends, whatever. Don't even show it to your friends. Don't even show it to your friends. I want you to keep it to yourself. So that way, not even they could tell me what it is. Perfect. I'm going to say that your card, and this is one of the things that I love doing with this, is I'll even take a opposite approach to it. And I'm thinking, so we got a 50-50 chance here. Now, this could actually go into a possible too much of an explanation thing. We'll see how it goes. Let me know down below what you think after I'm done here. So it could be red or black. I'm going to go with, because it's back to the color thing, right? Red or black. So now you just let into that. Ah, red. I think I got it. Red. Okay. Now, obviously, it's red, so hearts or diamonds. Hearts or diamond. Okay, I think we're going to go with diamonds. Okay, red diamond. Fantastic. Let's see. High or low value? High or low? I'm getting a face value out of this one. And I think we've only got king, queen, jack. I'm not getting the ace vibe. So queen of diamonds. Oh, beautiful. Queen of diamonds is a great card. Of course, if that's the card you did pick, then that would be a really good trick. But of course, your card is the six of clubs, right? Six of clubs. Boom. So a little bit of magic, mentalism there. So let me know down below what you thought about the presentation for that. I've done it live. It works really well. I actually got the idea from Craig Petty as part of the Muggle to Magician series with Matt. It's something that he performs, and it's really the same presentation. Really enjoyed it. So thank you for that. It's good stuff. Some of the stuff that I've done, there's marketed stuff that I saw how they did it, and then I reverse engineered the trick. There's just some I got to be very careful with doing that because they didn't teach me. I just figured it out, but it's still their marketed effect, so I got to be careful about showing it online. So anyway, that'd be cool if that was the Queen of Diamonds. That would be fun. Anyway. Whew, we're gonna jump back into it here. That's gonna be our break today for a little bit of magic. We got a couple of pages left. So, why did you tear up my card? That's a good question. Why did I? As implied above, there's an assumption by many mentalists that the spectator wonders if you are a mind reader. Why do I need to write anything down? And how? And now that I wrote it on my business card, why did you rip it into all those small pieces? Or further, why am I picking a word from a book? Why am I limited to just the colors on that board? Why am I hiding your coin and not my coin? You can struggle with nice pat answers to those questions, or you can do as I and most of my professional peers do, just get on with it. Yes, some in your audience of 3 or 300 will have those questions, but most, by a wide margin, will just go where you take them. They are seeing something well outside of their usual experiences, and if that's the way it's done, so be it. Go ahead and justify your request or actions if that feels right for you. Just don't be overly concerned with the reasons why they don't care. Come on, get real. Mnemonics, rapid math or day date calculations, chess night tours, magic squares. Back when I was performing full time, most of the guys I knew something about each of those systems. No one used them all, but many used some. That's because we treasured our 13 steps to mentalism. Karanda gave us all a solid grounding in true mentalism. So that might be a book I might look into. I just did learn magic squares because of the book, Henneman's book. So I just started delving into that. I haven't done mnemonics, but I've done Cy Stebbins. So I certainly did. The first 20 minutes of my mentalism act was a giant memory demonstration. A large board, numbers 1 through 10 down one side, 11 through 20 down the middle. People raise their hands, and when I call on them, they say one of the numbers in anything in the world that can be touched. You might say number 15, chair, or 8, table. Then the volunteer from the audience would write the word next to the number. Now, folks, you can give us words like table or chair, but you can make this much more interesting. It can be anything in the world you can touch. That gives you like a billion choices. When a word was given, as the volunteer scribe was writing it next to the called for number, I asked for specifics. What type of table? Dining room? What style? Ah, mid-century modern! Exclamation point. You have excellent taste! Exclamation point. Then the adjectives were squeezed or abbreviated onto the board as space permitted, and all the while I'm facing front, never looking at the board. I'll stop describing the act here. Just know that this was my bread and butter routine, the one that for years got me booked into shows across America. It was all legit, all mnemonics, and on cruise ships I did 2 shows for consecutive sittings, with less than 1 hour in between. So the hard part was forgetting the first show's words! Exclamation point. And I sometimes did the Chess Nights tour, which was similarly impressive to lay audiences. A few years back, I wrote the instructions for Liorminor's brilliant variation of the tour. Go find it and buy it. Today, we rarely see any of those true mind power demonstrations, which is too bad. The irony is, they look for more difficult rather than actually are, although they certainly do require developing some very real skills. If you want to stand apart from the ever growing worldwide population of mentalists, consider going back to the future. Being knowledgeable about mnemonics, by the way, does not necessarily mean you must overtly demonstrate that skill. There's a good chance you have seen top mentalists use it and you were never aware of that fact. Many use the techniques for purposes other than exhibiting supermemory or something similar. Yeah, I always like the idea of just using mnemonics in my everyday life to remember people's names. So it's something that I have strived for and definitely like to maintain that. Disclaimers. Few topics are as hotly debated within and without the mentalism magic community as disclaimers. It seems that a preponderance of the magic community seethes when a mentalist fails to issue a strong disclaimer about his or her alleged abilities. They should find a better outlet for their energies. On the TV special Hidden Secrets of Magic, the big closer was Lance Burton being buried alive in a casket, hands and feet shackled under 6 feet of dirt. For his last words before the stunt began, he looked solemnly into the camera and warned viewers not to try a similar stunt because, if you do, you will die. Interspersed throughout the show were scenes of the history of the challenge, and Lance talking about the need to fight fear and panic. In all ways, this was presented in the same fashion as Blaine's ice stunt with Copperfield's tornado of fire. That is, a legitimate stunt, which, while exceedingly difficult, could be mastered with proper training, preparation, and know how. But, unlike the Blaine and Copperfield stunt, this was a true magic trick. In this case, did Lance have a responsibility to let his audience know he never really was 6 feet under? Did the documentary style build up to the climax cross the line between reality and theater? Surely, for some viewers, it did, and they believed that a human can truly survive after being buried under 6 feet of soil. But if you agree that Lance, in what was clearly a magic show, did no harm, and I didn't think he did, then what harm can there ever be in a mentalist picking up the vibes, thoughts, feelings of his audience while on stage? It comes down to this: the mentalist has no responsibility to either educate or enlighten. His job, especially when he's being paid, is to entertain a group of people. Assuming no one in the audience alters the course of his or her life after viewing one of our shows, a valid assumption I make after decades in this field, what's the problem with not warning that? This may not be exactly what it seems. Looking at it from the opposite point of view, I can think of little that might be gained by the use of a forceful disclaimer. You can spend hours carefully crafting your disclaimer, but I assure you, for most people, 10 minutes later, and certainly the day after your performance, no one will remember the tiny slice of your time on stage devoted to setting the record straight. They just don't care. If you are amazing and they can't fathom any explanation, your disclaimer, delivered early in your show, carries as much weight as cotton candy on a windy day. A forcefully voiced, unambiguous disclaimer slashes the mentalist's premise to shreds, and extraordinary moments ratchet down to become tricks or likely mere puzzles. The entertainment experience suffers, and no one gains. On a related note, the first time I attended a production at Monday Night Magic in Manhattan, noted writer and magician Jamie Ian Swiss closed the show. He was preceded by talented mentalist Doc Hilford, who did a card reading act. During Jamie's stint, he threw in remarks that were sometimes sly, sometimes mocking about the abilities of the psychic entertainer, none of which would surprise any reader of his prolific and erudite writings. Other mentalists in the audience posted what they saw in various online forums, which led many of my colleagues in the mentalist community to pounce on Swiss for his stance, saying basically he was a jerk to have done that. They're wrong. He has the right to say anything he wants. As a performer, the moment he takes the stage, he is free to offer his view of the world, because that, in part, is what an artist does. Any artist, graphic, magical or otherwise. He shares his vision. If his vision mocks, satires, inflames, or exalts, well, that's part of the theater. From these are names, so it's going to be difficult. From Aeschylus to LB, theatrical experiences attempted to educate, elucidate, poke fun at authority, question belief systems. A drama professor of mine back in Hofstra continually told us anything is acceptable in theater except boredom. If Jamie Ian Swiss or anyone else chooses to alienate a particular performer or type of performer for what he sees as a larger good, we have to accept it. You don't have to agree, but when it's your turn to step on stage, that's the time when you can share your vision. Mental magic. Aside from disclaimers, another raging discussion among mentalists is the mentalism versus mental magic controversy. In general, mental magic uses more props. Also, the plots in mental magic tend to be more convoluted. Mental magic straddles a netherworld, not quite pure mentalism, yet a step removed from traditional magic. The best of the working mentalists use only the most innocent of props, invisible props. Invisible in the sense that the audience barely notices their existence: paper, pencils, ordinary tables, books. Mental magic uses items that more overtly draw attention to themselves: unusual stands, clocks, bags, boxes, and such. Performers in this category have to work harder to establish credibility. I won't go into a long discussion of this here. I just want to put out the pitfall of choosing this approach as opposed to the more bare bones presentations. Magic dealers sell mental magic. You need to refer to books to learn their pure strains of mentalism. Pure strains of mentalism. Nothing to see here. Mentalists and magicians doing mental magic often use gimmicked pads, forcing boxes, forcing bags, etc. But too many performers make the mistake of sending unnecessary attention to the prop. Generally, the ideal way to use these props is pre show, so it remains truly invisible to all but one or two members of the audience. That, of course, is not always possible in that case. Craft your script so that the absolute minimum attention is set to the prop. The prop must be incidental to whatever is happening. It should quickly fade into the background and become meaningless. All your words and attention should send attention or actions. All your words and actions should send attention anywhere except to the special prop or gimmick. Descartes before the horse. Descartes before the horse. Sometimes bright mentalists lack logic. So, just as a brief interlude here, so what he's saying is that the difference between a mentalist doing mentalism and a magician doing mental magic is the magician is still acting. He's pretending to do mentalism by using props that would give him those same specific powers that a mentalism would have. It's vastly different because there is a middle step there. It's a magician performing as a mentalist by using mental magic. This is how I'm interpreting that. Let me know down below if you feel the same way. Sometimes bright mentalists lack logic. When you say to a man from the audience after a moment of intense concentration, Jerry, the name of your first girlfriend was Dolores, correct? You have divined something that is one out of thousands. You cannot, therefore, minutes later exhibit the same struggle getting a spectator star sign. That's 1 out of 12. Similarly, if you hand the spectator your own slim notepad, which was a different celebrity on each page, you can't sweat and strain saying, I get the feeling it's a man, correct? 1 out of 2? He's in show business, right? But we all know you know the male choices! Exclamation point. Astute audience members will silently mock you for your naivete about that moment. Yeah, I get it. Like, you started with something that would presumably be harder because there's more choices, and then as you get closer and closer to the finale, you have less and less choices. So the guessing should be easier, or the figuring out what it is. You you don't have to strictly script your show so that it's a smooth ramp up toward every more difficult feat. I do urge you, however, to give your audience credit for grasping the difference between a small number of choices and a massive universe of choices. Whenever possible, perform mentalism that fits the latter description. and try to put the easier feats in front of the more taxing ones. The mentalist suggests or reaffirms what the mind can do. So this goes back to my presentation of how I do the card trick, which is that I give you 3 colors. Pretty simple. I make a guess or not, but I give you the inference that I can read you based on what color you're thinking of. 3 choices. And then I give you a card that you picked at random, and then I read your mind to figure out what that card was out of 52 possibilities. So it builds to the climax, and the same premise is being used both times. The mentalist suggests or reaffirms what the mind can do. He sells the possibility that strange things are afoot in the universe. All leading mentalists manage to do that without resorting to what had previously been known as a overt showmanship. They allow the miraculous effects to speak for themselves. That's it. That was a pretty good cliffhanger there. They allow the miraculous effects to speak for themselves. Gorgeous. That's mentalism. Tomorrow, you guys will really love the the next one is Silent Acts, I think. Yeah. Chapter 17 is Silent Acts, and that one's only a couple of pages, so it'll be a quick video for you tomorrow. And I like to talk a little bit about the future thing, because if I have specific knowledge about certain things, I like to give that to you, or my own opinions based on it. Sometimes when I'm writing routines, I will do it silent first and put some music to it and just put that out there, because if I can't perform the act entertainingly without words, then having words to it isn't going to help. The magic should stand on its own. The patter is only there to kind of elevate it to another level. So I like to do it silently first so that you can be amazed by the performance and magic of it. Then we add the patter for the engaging element. So, Silent Acts tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to be a book sponsor. We really want to get these books in the hands of aspiring performers. Yeah. So don't forget to subscribe. It really does help out the channel. And of course, click the video that's just for you. Yep, just for you. Ta-da!